Okay, good evening and welcome to our Rural Support and Wellbeing webinar this evening. Tonight we are talking about selling food produce at the farm gate and also all things food related around farming. But first of all, just a couple of things for housekeeping. If you do want to, please feel free to unmute yourselves with the mute button, which looks like a microphone. And please share if you have any comments or questions throughout the presentation. We really want to hear your side of things and any questions, and so that we can give you as much information as possible. And if we don't know the answers, then obviously we'll take away your query and try and find out for you. Your camera will be disabled just to help the internet connection. And if you don't want to speak, there is a chat facility which you can write your query or your question in, and then I will ask it on your behalf to the speaker at an appropriate time. Okay. Also, because it is a rural support and wellbeing event, sometimes when we're talking about some of the topics, people want to share things, but they would prefer it not shared on as we are recording the session. So if there is anything that you want to talk about, but then you would like us to remove from the recording, all you need to do is email in or contact us on the telephone number, either myself or Sam, and we can remove that from the recording. We'd rather you talk freely, and then we can edit it out later if that is what's required. Okay. And tonight we have a lady called Caroline Dorrell. She is one of our trading standards officers. I think she's been working in the service for at least 18 years, I think we were talking about earlier. And it's part of the heart of the Southwest Trading Standards. Good evening, Caroline.
Hi.
Hello, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much for coming and speaking this evening. And we'll let Sam, or are you going to share your presentation yourself, aren't you? So if you're happy, if you want to try and share that, and then start whenever you feel ready.
Right, can you all see that?
Yeah, I can see that. That's brilliant.
As Nikki said, I have been a trading standards officer for 21 years now. I originally joined trading standards as a temporary job because I moved down from London and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just stayed because I really enjoy it. So I fully qualified. I'm a weights and measures inspector, and I have the food and feed safety and fair trading qualifications. So I'm going to talk to you about food and how it affects farming community tonight. So there's some legislation that we always use. So the Food Safety Act, Food Information Regulations, Nutrition and Health Claims Regs, and Natasha's Law, which is to do with allergens, which I will talk more about in greater detail later. There's also specific legislation, so this covers individual types of food and controls them. However, the overriding thing about food is if it's on the market, it must be safe. So you don't want it can literally kill people. So farming community are very good at traceability, which is part of making sure that food is safe. However, we have recently had to take a case about someone who's forging his salmonella test results. And as you can see, he was fined £50,000. And the rural team do a lot of work about traceability, which is why all the movements are logged. So you can trace food in a shop back to where it was killed, the abattoirs, and then back to the farm. So it's really is from farm to fork. So I've been asked to mention farm gate sales. So I was thinking about the things that you might want to sell in the farm gate. So eggs, can be sold directly to the consumer from a farm by door-to-door delivery or from a market or boot sale, and they do not need to be weighed, graded or stamped. But this is all part of making sure that they're safe when they're on the market. They must have a best before date and they must be kept refrigerated after purchase. Although I don't think Delia agrees with that. I think she likes people not to keep their eggs in the fridge, but that's the legal recommendation. And in certain circumstances, the production site and name and address. But if you're buying it from the farm gate, it's normally pretty obvious that they've been produced there. These requirements do not apply to graded or cracked eggs, and there are specific provisions for labelling free-range eggs and barn eggs because the definition of them is covered under legislation, and obviously free-range eggs sell at a premium, so that's why they have to be labelled differently, to stop everyone just calling all of their eggs free-range if they're not. There are some general requirements for food labelling. So this is all for all products. Obviously, you want to know what you're eating, so you have to have the name of the food. There should be a list of ingredients on them. A quid declaration. So this is if you have a steak and kidney pie, you want to know how much steak is in it and how much kidney. Also, any allergens must be labelled. This goes back to the law I mentioned earlier, where a young lady died because she ate something that contained a allergen. It was a takeaway, and I think it was peanuts, and she had told them she had an allergy, but they ignored it. But I will say, if any of the products that you're producing contain allergens, or you're not sure, it's just best to say no. You can't guarantee that doesn't contain the allergen. Then there can be no mistakes because you can't gamble with people's lives. It's just wrong. You need a use by date or an indication of minimum durability. So the use by date is things that are highly perishable and could become dangerous if you use them after that date. Best before isn't so serious because it's the things that don't really go off, and you can use them. The quality may deteriorate, but it won't actually kill you. Any special storage conditions or conditions for use. So if something has to be heated before you eat it, you need that on it, or if it must be kept refrigerated, that needs to be on it as well. The name and address of the food business operator, again, that's for traceability. How much the product weighs, or if it's a liquid, you need to have how much of it is there. Place of origin, this is again traceability, and so that the consumer can make an informed decision. Like, you know, if they want to buy a British product, it should come from Britain. Any instructions that are necessary to use the food, like take out the packaging before you microwave it, and a nutrition information declaration. So that has the energy values, the amounts of fat, saturated, sorry, carbohydrate, sugars, protein, and salt. However, if you're a small producer, there is an exemption. So if you employ less than 10 people and have a turnover of less than 2 million euros, which is roughly 1.75 million pounds, you do not need to put the nutritional information on your product. And this is for products for the final consumer or for local retail establishments. So if you're selling locally and you're a small business, then that covers you. Another thing you might sell is jam. This is a reserved description. So it needs, before you can call it jam, it needs to meet the compositional requirements of regulation. And there's the amount of fruit that should be in it. And if you're using more than one type of fruit, you can use the combined weight of that fruit. Meat. Fresh meat. So should be displayed for sale with the name of the food, so it's obvious what it is, and the cut as well. This is all information that the consumers would like, so they can make an informed choice about what they're buying. There are special regulations, so beef and veal is covered, pork, poultry, mutton, lamb and goat. You need to have the country of origin, and then cooked meat needs to comply with the products containing meat, etc. England regs, and it's equivalent in Wales. Tell me. This, the weights and measures side of it. Now, the aim of weights and measures is for it to be as accurate as possible. Because if you're a trader, you don't want to be giving your product away. For a really good example of this, one of our colleagues, Lee, went out and worked with a company, and they were making brownies, and they were all 12 grams over the weight that they were declaring. So he said, you need to get that more accurate because you're giving product away. And if you add all the 12 grams up together, that could be potentially be a lot of money. Anyway, 2 weeks later, they landed £1 million contract. So imagine how much product they would be giving away if they hadn't got it as accurately as possible. If you're using scales, we call them weighing instruments historically. They must be passed fit for use for trade by an inspector of weights and measures or an approved verifier. And again, that means that they're legally accurate. And it's a very difficult time for the food industry. So I'd like to talk about some of the issues facing you and the work that trading standards do to try and help. So we're aware that the climate change is having impacts. Cost of living is making it so hard for the food industry. Obviously, supply chain has been affected by the war in Ukraine. There's novel foods appearing on the market, insects, genetically modified products. There's lots of in the news currently about greenwashing, where innocent drinks were pulled up over this. And also green hushing is now a thing, underreporting or commuting sustainable practices. And there's a lot about ultra processed foods. This year, part of the Southwest Trading Standards are focusing on imported foods and allergens. Now, imported foods is a real problem because the products that are being imported don't have the tight controls we do, and they're not of the quality. And the first outbreak of foot and mouth, I was actually a customs officer at Heathrow, and when it happened, I was on a drugs team, and we were all pulled off looking for drugs, and we just stood at the back of the terminals, went through suitcases, and seized meat. And MAF, who it was then, sent down a team as well, and we just filled dustbins full of it. It was such a big problem, and the illegally imported meat was later found to be the source of foot and mouth. The controls have changed because of Brexit, and so there is an increased threat of smuggling of meat. And obviously that means there's the potential for disease coming into the country. So there's African swine fever, I think, that one. We also have a problem with imported sweets. They're the banned imported American candy, bright colours, really appealing to children. Has some horrible stuff in it that can be carcinogenic, and yeah, not very nice stuff at all. So we're out there looking for that, so we can try and get that removed from the market. As I said earlier, allergens are very serious. We're going in and we're sampling to make sure that people basically know what they're selling, and so we'll ask if something contains an allergen. Hopefully, if they're not sure, they say no. But there are some people that guess, which is wrong, because it's Russian roulette, basically. So if you're not sure, don't guess, just say no. And we have an advice leaflet, and there is some free training available on our website. Other areas of interest to us, there's been a lot about modern day slavery. This is a couple that were fined 200k because they were putting people to work in McDonald's restaurant, and basically keeping them in really bad conditions and taking their money. We do keep an eye out when we go and do our inspections for anything that is a bit dodgy like that. Trademarks. Now, this is Colin and Cuthbert. This was Marks and Spencer's versus Lidl. Both similar products. Marks and Spencer said that Lidl couldn't sell their own version. It took them to court, and it went on for years and years and years. And because Marks and Spencer said that people might think they were buying a Marks and Spencer's product in Lidl. I don't think you would. However, it was eventually settled out of court. Both companies did very well out of it because they both got publicity. And we trading stands in London seized a load of counterfeit chocolate bars. The problem is with this is you don't know what's in them, how they're produced, if they're safe or not. Sausages. Can sausages be made from vegetables, not meat? This in Europe, France has said no, and Germany and Netherlands have said yes. So this also affects people that want to export, because you have to comply with the country that you're exporting to. The drinking milk regulations, says that only milk from dairy can be called dairy animals can be called milk. The High Court handed down its decision on the use of the word milk in trademarks for non-dairy. The Oatly successfully appealed about the use of milk generation. However, there is an update which happened today. So the Oatly cannot call its milk after the Court of Appeal ruled that the term can only be used to sell milk produced by animals in a victory for British dairy industry. So that happened today. So that's the latest. We also come across food fraud. So olive oil, milk, and honey are the top three. Cost of living, cost of olive oil has doubled since 2018. Fraud has hit a record high in the EU. Milk is one of the most counterfeited products in the world. This obviously has a massive impact on the Southwest because we're one of the biggest dairy producers. So we keep an eye out for any counterfeit products. This is what impact it could potentially have on our economy. And honey. So there is more Manuka honey imported into Europe than is produced in the whole of New Zealand. And it is very commonly honey is one of the most commonly adulterated products. So that's it. They found 46% of sample products were suspected to be fraudulent. I think probably the best thing to do with honey is just buy local, because then you know where it's come from and you're supporting local bees as well. So there was a recent court case about raw honey. Yeah, so the best advice again is just buy local. And then there's some of the links that you will find useful information, and I think that is about it for me. So I have some time over if anyone would like to ask anything. Okay.
Oh, thanks ever so much, Caroline, for giving us that information and that presentation. I really appreciate it. I'll just give it a couple of seconds just in case anyone has got anything they want to ask you. I've always got something I can comment on, but but I just a couple of things that I wrote down as you were going through, really.
Yeah, go on.
So I just wondered, you said about the nutritional information requirements at the beginning and how it differed for small businesses.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you knew why. I mean, to me, if you're selling a product or you're selling produce, I don't see why it would be different for, like a small business that's turning over a small amount of money to a bigger retail business. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's because if you think of like somebody who sells their products at a farmer's market,
Yeah.
if it had to have the nutritional information, that's an extra cost to the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just wanted to remove that burden to support small businesses. Yeah. So
Okay, I was just
I
curious.
think
That's
I
all.
think it's a good thing, because if you have to provide all that information, you have to have your products tested to
Yeah.
get the information, and that's an extra burden. So, like a small business who perhaps produces just for one market a month would have to pay the somebody who's pay the same as somebody who's supplying a supermarket.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I just was probably not thinking along the right lines. I just couldn't quite work out why you would have the difference. But yeah, financial gain and like you said, the burden on a small business to write all that information,
Yeah.
that makes sense. The other thing was about the green hushing. Didn't understand what that was. What was that?
It's when people like try and brush under, brush away what they're doing for the for the green uh, side of that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the greenwashing is when you like, oh, my product's really good for the environment.
Yeah.
And green hushing is the opposite, when you go, well, we're not going to mention the environment at all, because we know
Okay.
that it's not very good.
Okay,
We're
that
just
makes
we're
sense.
just yeah, we're just brush that way, ignore it.
Oh, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I just wasn't quite sure of the terminology and how and what it meant really. Um, yeah, so no, that was great. There was just a couple of things that I just wondered, and the only other thing was about we talked about the meat boxes and sort
Yeah.
of different things, and we also talked about eggs, which are two sort of common things that people sell from their farms and things. The only other one was veg boxes, and I wasn't sure, is that much simpler, or is there anything that you can remember that would be sort of relevant for somebody that's
Um,
doing veg boxes?
I think the best thing, if anyone has any queries,
Yeah.
ask us. Um, we generally, trading standards would like businesses to come to us, um, and try and get it right when they start up, because it's a lot easier to do that, to get it right to start with, than get down the route where you're doing something and then you find out it's wrong. So, for instance, if you have a product, um, and you want to have loads of labels printed, um, we do provide a service where you can have it checked to make sure it's compliant. Um, is chargeable, but that can be quite an investment. If you get it wrong, then you're going to have all your labels. You can't use them and have them reprinted. So, and any food business can come to trading standards. They need to also speak to environmental health, and we want people to get it right. It's a lot easier to help people get it right than have to prosecute them.
No, that makes sense, and it's all available, like you said, on our website, isn't it? The website's
Yeah,
full of
it
guidance
is.
leaflets
Yeah,
and things. And then if they don't find what they want on our website, then obviously they can speak with one of us and get the relevant information that they require.
yeah.
I'm super grateful for you giving up your evening and giving us that information. Obviously, if anyone has any other questions, myself and Sam share our email address at the end of the evening, so we can obviously pass any queries across to Caroline or one of our food officers and get some any further answers after this evening. So that's great. Thanks ever so much, Caroline.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye. We might just need you to unshare your presentation
Yeah,
if you can.
I can
Thank
do that
you.
now.
Lovely.
Oh, oh no, it didn't work.
There must be there'll be a button.
Oh,
Oh, well
yeah.
done. Yep, it's
Yeah.
gone.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you. Okay, we'll just wait for Sam to move on to the next slide. So sadly, we were going to have another presenter this evening from the Farming Community Network, and that also works with jointly with Macmillan, but she couldn't make it in the end this evening. So myself and Sam are just going to go back over just a couple of the things that we normally talk about with regards to the wellbeing side of things, and obviously the Future Farm Resilience project that we've been kindly given the funding to run these webinars through. So the Future Farm Resilience Programme will be coming to the end of its sign-up time at the end of December. But up until then, obviously, if there is, we'll show you a list in a moment of the remaining workshops that we have, but there's still one-to-one support, digital training, and obviously access to some of the wellbeing stuff that we've been doing. You can then go back over the webinars that we've already done, and any of those things at any time. We'll have some of the information that you might require. We've got these events left to run. We've got a wellbeing winter workshop in Horworthy on the 10th of December. On the 12th of December, we've got a big breakfast that's running jointly with the NFU up at Holsworthy Market. So that's on a Thursday. That's the day after market day there. We've got quite a few sign-ups for that already.
And it's a free breakfast.
It is a free breakfast. Yeah, that's a very good point to add that on. So more the merrier. And we've got quite a few different support services that are coming along. We've got FCN, RABI, we've got the rural crime officers, we've got people from Kibbles, some chartered surveyors that work for Kibbles that will talk about all things to do with the the inheritance tax problems or other succession planning, things to do with your land and selling off things, and just anything related to that really. And we've also got a soil analysis workshop on the 13th, and alongside those in-person events, we're also still running some online events. We've got one on the 10th of December for succession planning, one on the 16th and for farm grants, and one on the 19th for updates on the latest farm grant schemes and SFI. But all of these, you can go on to the Business Information Point website for workshops, and you can sign up for any of those. It looks like there's a question. It was from Robin. It was at a DEFRA presentation this week that I put a slide up saying FFR will finish end of March 25. And it sounded like advice had to be booked before the end of 24, but can be delivered until March 25. So does that mean we can still run these webinars until the end of March 25? So we've got a few more to run. We were obviously funded to run the rural support and wellbeing webinars, and we had to do in-person and online webinars, and we had to deliver 38 of these workshops over the 2 years, and the end of the 2 years is March 25. So we've got a couple more that we're going to put in place over the month of January, but they obviously want us to try and tie them up by the end of January, because they have to then run reports and things to go back to DEFRA, who obviously give out the funding. But if you've got any ideas, Robin, of anything else that you can think of that would be topical, that you think we should put into these webinars, any ideas of any speakers or organisations that you think would benefit the farming community before we've got probably 2 or 3 more that we need to run. So myself and Sam would be really happy to hear any suggestions. Obviously not right now if you don't want to, but you can always email us. That would be amazing. So we're just trying to fill them with support and things as best we can, and make the most of the webinars really, and the time that we've been allowed to allocate to them. Anyway, this is a Hub of Hope slide, which we do share every single time. Myself and Sam have used it on more than one occasion. and this is just a search engine for mental health charities or mental health support services in general. Not all of them charities, some through the NHS, and they're obviously a search engine which you can just put your postcode in, and you can also choose whether you want something to do with abuse or anxiety, for example, or if you just want a general mental health charity, you can just put in the postcode and press go, and it will take you through to the support services that are within the closest radius to that postcode. We found this quite useful purely because even just going over the border into Somerset or over the border into Cornwall, if you're trying to find support for a farming family or a support for people that you're interacting with, it can really vary from literally as close as a few posts, a few towns over can be different to, or a different local authority can give different support than the other, and this tool is really helpful. Okay, I think that's it, Sam. Yeah, just to say thank you ever so much for attending. As always, there's an email address there and a phone number. If you've got any questions that you want to follow up on this evening's webinar, or you have come up with anything else that you want to bring to our attention, we're always really happy to hear it. Any ideas for future webinars or ways forward that we can use to really just support the rural community in general. Yeah, that's it really. So thank you ever so much for joining us this evening.